Look, you're a busy adult, I'm a busy adult, and if you somehow have time to play anything between Tears of the Kingdom binge sessions, well, you have more time than I do, friend. But if you need something to round out your gaming diet, or you're just having a lazy Sunday, I've got you covered with a piping hot selection of games you can enjoy in just 1 or 2 gaming sessions. Welcome to Games Under 5 Hours, where I find cool indies you might not have heard of that easily fit into a time-strapped gamer's schedule. First up, we've got Melatonin. Melatonin is a rhythm heaven game wrapped up in bubblegum pink. For those not familiar with the series, this might not even look like a rhythm game at first glance, and just a somewhat inscrutable music video with impeccable vibes. But the second you put an actual controller in your hands, I promise, Melatonin makes perfect sense. Figuring out where the rhythm game is and what exactly you're supposed to be doing from context clues is all part of the fun. Most of the levels are simple call and answer challenges like this weightlifting one, but others can have vaguer cues. Like this baseball one that works off a triplet rhythm. The portal opens on beat 1, you press a button on beat 2, and then you release on beat 3, and wham! Baseball clock nailed. You did it. And Melatonin continues on much like this, with each unique little scenario having its own context clues on what you're supposed to be doing. It's all an exercise in making an effectively UI-free rhythm game, and when it clicks, you don't just get the usual rush of being in the zone that most rhythm games provide. You get to feel pretty damn clever, too. Where Melatonin really comes into its own, however, is when it starts combining its different levels together rapid-fire like a game of WarioWare, mixing and matching at will. These moments absolutely slap, and they are all too rare, but they're still worth sticking around for, and they give Melatonin a solid rhythm that makes the game ideal for playing in 1 or 2 sit-downs. I had a lot of fun dipping into Melatonin, and if you're a fan of rhythm games, you probably will too. Lil Gator Game. Like a short hike? You're in luck. There's another one now. For anyone else, Lil Gator Game is a bite-sized adventure game about a bunch of kids LARPing with cardboard. It is adorable. Crushingly so. Not just in its saccharine and heartwarming main plotline, but in almost every single character interaction. Lil Gator Game isn't exactly trying to break new narrative ground here, but honestly, don't let the game's simplicity fool you. This is some of the best writing I've seen all year. Most of the gameplay involves running around an island, talking to a bunch of other kids, and solving their individual mini-quests. None of these encounters are longer than 5 minutes, and it's a real credit that out of the 50-some encounters on the island, almost every single one of them is memorable, joyful, and often hilarious. This is not nearly as easy as it looks. In the immortal words of Blaise Pascal, if I had more time, I'd write a shorter letter. It's also a pretty fun, if entirely frictionless game to navigate. Like Short Hike before it, Gator Game lifts a lot of mechanics from Breath of the Wild. Wall climbing, a glider, getting to slide around on your shield, and gives you a new little playground to use all of these probably familiar tools. It feels great and does a perfectly good job keeping the game entertaining through its short runtime. But the real star of the show here is the fun and vibrant cast. Thanks to them, Lil Gator Game is video game chicken soup. And damn good soup at that. Atari 50, the Anniversary Celebration. Atari 50 is one of an extremely unique and almost unheard of collection of games, effectively an attempt to make a playable documentary. I don't think it 100% succeeds, but the fact it exists at all should have it on your radar. It's full of fun little anecdotes. Atari made a precursor to Simon Says. Centipede was almost dragon-themed instead. One time, they planned a quadrilogy with real, solid gold artifacts as prizes for whoever beat it. There was an official Atari handshake? Who the hell thought this up? But just know what you're actually getting into. This is an Atari documentary made by Atari, more of a celebration of the company's history than a full-blown documentary. And while it does have the occasional interview section or internal design document salvaged from somebody's basement, the company's story is almost entirely told through old marketing materials. If you're looking for a journalistically rigorous and in-depth look into the history of an iconic gaming company, something along the lines of what Double Fine put out a few months back, you're not going to get that here. Atari 50 feels more like a campfire reminiscence, a lightweight and entertaining retelling of the good old days. It's like when you get together with your buds and every 5 minutes somebody pitches in, "Hey, remember Warlords?" to an immediate chorus of, "Oh yeah, Warlords was the shit!" But even if I'd like something a bit more, documentarian, Atari 50 still has immense value. Even old marketing materials become fascinating fossils half a century later, and it genuinely cannot be stressed enough just how great Atari 50 is from a games preservation angle. It's got all the classics with accompanying fun factoids, but also some lesser-known offshoots, dead ends, and even proof of concepts for entirely unreleased arcade games. It is cool as hell that this thing exists at all. And that's still the best angle to come at Atari 50 from, because as cool as it is to have this collection of almost 100 arcade games, most of these games can either be played better in more modern versions from the comfort of your own web browser, or otherwise have controls that really make you appreciate the ensuing half-century of iteration and game feel. But honestly, Atari 50 really has its work cut out for it in this regard. You try translating an arcade cabinet that was originally meant to be played by 2 players with steering wheels into something a random guy on a keyboard can enjoy. But that's not to say that there aren't any real bangers in here. Like Yoomp? I love Yoomp. This thing's like a proto-rhythm platformer, and it is incredibly fun. If you really get sucked into any of these games, you could easily blow more than 5 hours on Atari 50, but if you're just here for the museum tour, it's still a solid and breezy jaunt through some of gaming's most famous arcade classics. Impaler. Impaler's as straightforward as it gets. A 90s shooter horde mode game set in some dingy basement where you murder waves after waves of hellspawn with a big chunky shotgun until one of them finally gets you. You've got a mostly straightforward list of enemies to fight, a whole system of roguelike upgrades that mostly don't matter, and quote-unquote diverse layouts that mostly involve summoning several different variations of pillars to break up the same rectangular room. This is a game with very few frills attached. Because let's be honest, if you pick up this game for any reason, it's to play with the Impaler gun, and as a vehicle to let me play with the Impaler gun, Impaler does the job great. This game knows exactly what it's about, giving you a novel and entertaining little mechanical system to explore and master. Everything else around it is window dressing to give you an excuse to use it. The gun itself is more than just a novel way to murder enemies. You can use it as a sort of super jump to get around obstacles, then come back down and kill opponents with a stomp attack. You can use it to interact with objects in the world and force them to move around, and when you combine it with a little mini game you play during every level where you have to launch this big chalice into a randomly spawned goal, it becomes a versatile tool you can use in all sorts of clever and surprising ways. It doesn't matter what situation you're in, the Impaler can probably do something about it. Impaler probably isn't going to leave much of a lasting impression, but I also don't think it's trying to. It's a solid game for only a few bucks that you can enjoy for an afternoon or two if you're itching for that 90s shooter kick. T-30. As its name suggests, T-30 is a city builder you can play in just 30 minutes. In a premise ripped right out of the old Outpost games, meteors are coming for Earth, and you only have 30 minutes to start from absolutely nothing and build as many rockets as possible to evacuate the planet's populace. T-30 is an extremely simple city builder, and it kinda has to be. You don't have time to think or plan, only to expand and consume, to devour as much of the map as possible and convert it into rockets before it's knocked away from under you. You'll see literally everything the game has to offer you in your very first run, but the real joy is in the mastery of those mechanics over repeated runs. There's no ceiling to how many people you can save, so you're always competing against your own previous best, trying to figure out just how little you can think and just how fast you can build without completely shattering your economy. Because of its high-score nature, T-30 encourages you to approach it a bit like a speedrunner, finding ways outside of its tutorial advice to actually simplify the game's core loop. You can spend valuable time trying to build a massive electrical network that can power your entire city as the game intends for you to, or you could just plop down 1 or 2 windmills next to every minor factory you build in a fraction of the time. The latter is less efficient from a resource standpoint, but significantly more time efficient than sitting around trying to figure out the perfect way to finagle your electrical network across your already cramped city. And the fun is in winding yourself up tighter and tighter, finding more and more concepts you can shave away in pursuit of the perfect high score, and then suddenly the floor falls out from under you because you don't have any more wood, and you're forced to spend one of those precious 30 minutes setting up new lumber camps. It's an incredibly addictive loop. T-30 is a phenomenal little gem that, much like last month's Against the Storm, offers classic city building concepts in a new, smaller package that you can enjoy on a time crunch. But it's definitely not the only city builder promising that lately, because we still need to talk about Terra Nil. The indie game du jour of last month, Terra Nil is all about reviving a post-apocalyptic planet, turning barren and lifeless continents back into pristine, gorgeous nature tableaus. It bills itself as a city builder, after a fashion, though many have preferred to label it a puzzle game instead. But rather than pitching a genre, I think it's easiest to describe the game as such. Terra Nil is a game about playing with intention, where even your very first few decisions can affect the endgame. Some levels require you to pursue objectives in a specific order, like the Arctic mission that asks you to set off some volcanoes and raise the temperature to inspire some plant life to start growing, before slowly bringing it back down to form icebergs. And I have one particularly memorable gacha from the very first level that required me to tear up half the diorama I'd just finished making because the late game objective wasn't in range of a river. It's a fairly permissive game that isn't trying to stump you with brain teasers, but it does have a script as purposeful and intended as any single-player RPG, and that inflexibility, combined with the fact that it doesn't have a go here marker to tell you which lines in the script are yours, inspires some to interpret it as a puzzle game. It's even complete with set-piece moments intended to wow you whenever you accidentally trip them. You can literally count them on one hand, so I don't want to spoil any of them, but Terra Nil's most effective trick is the moment the ecosystem itself begins to act, when some tipping point has been reached and changes cascade across the entire map. Those moments can feel terrifying. Here you are trying to build a very delicate and purposeful house of cards, and in comes a stiff breeze that threatens to knock it all over. Suddenly, the game is entirely out of your control, and the entire map starts rapidly changing faster than you can even process what to do about it. But there are also stunning moments when already gorgeous pixel art kicks into overdrive, and these little set pieces are what I'm going to remember about this game. Terra Nil is more than just pretty pixels, though. Every level introduces something new, every biome comes with its own unique challenges, and the game as a whole is a new experience you won't find anywhere else. And like many of the best games I cover on this channel, it accomplishes what it sets out to do, then lets you go. It's a tightly designed, highly enjoyable package. That's all the game recs for this time, but before you go, I'd like to thank all the folks over on Patreon that keep the lights on here at First 5. Without their contributions, I would not be able to make these videos, and, well, I like to think they're providing at least a little bit of a public service. And remember, you could always be one of them. If you like the work I do, you could be right up here with them in the credits for the low cost of $5 a month, as well as in the First 5 Discord and getting video essays a day before everybody else. You can find a link down in the description, as well as right here in the end card. You can also find me over on Twitch these days, where I'm hard at work researching games for my upcoming Time-Strapped Gamer's Guide project, so if a casual afternoon stream is something you enjoy, you can add First 5 Review to your streaming diet. I hope you all enjoyed the latest games under 5 hours, and you all have a good one.